question is, will we require will we allow it to be overwritten, or will we require that the family scrap it? To say that we don't know what it would take to do that, since it's just being captured in the external database, it's likely maybe there's a way to fix it.
Is Hunter there?
Not that I know of.
I just got a notification. It says MGB workshop live stream, Carburettor disassembly, and it looks like Hunter's in the shop with you.
Scenario E.
Huh.
Are you guys doing live right now?
DEI1 with DEI2.
My neck looks like that.
DEI2
I think we're about to do a live stream. So a lot of screens going on.
Maybe it's just an old picture, unless there's somebody else in the shop with you.
Dad's in the shop.
So you gotta change on change.
The one that besides Dad, but yeah, that's cool.
And we also have the idea to what if one of the DEI techniques completed.
Not sure that'll matter. I'm just thinking about that. If DEI1 were a good one enough, we started DEI2 as a cutback, but they didn't release it, and that never happens. And we never even know if DEI2 if it's not released. So when DEI3 comes along, it's okay. Doesn't matter to us whether there's a DEI2 or not. We handle DEI3 as a replacement for DEI1. If that DEI2 just hangs out there and work unless 3DX has a problem with it, but it's not a problem to us. I don't think 3DX has a problem with it.
Oh. Yeah, Hunter is in that picture, but that's from a different day.
It was a different day.
Mm-hmm.
And is that a new link that I'm allowed to share with people or not? Because Daddy had said something like, "Don't share that with so many people."
Oh yeah, I
They
think
were you guys were gonna make a new channel.
we were. Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So are you saying you couldn't find flights because it was too short notice or something?
No, they were too expensive.
Even on Southwest?
Yeah. It was like 140 there and then 200 something back.
How much?
140 or something to go down there and then 200 and something to go back.
Everything that comes to me,
Well, I personally think that you should do it, but I think it would be good for your mental health.
I mean,
People are working so hard.
it would be fun. I don't really have the money to do that, so it's not.
Well, did you ask Daddy what kind of miles he has?
Yeah.
No, but I think 40,000 is a lot. I think that's what it
What?
was.
Well, I'd ask Daddy to look up his miles and see if it's something that we could do for you because it might actually help you get your work done better if you can have a mental break and be able to spend time with Brendan.
That's very kind.
I mean, you still probably have to do homework, right?
Not if I finished it before. I only have 2 assignments left.
Nice.
So
Okay, well, well, would you ask Daddy to look up his miles and see how many miles it would take? Did you say 40?
that's what I thought. I thought it was. I don't know if it changes if you're logged in or not because I'm not logged into the app.
It doesn't change.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to go, and if you guys would look at that, I'm going to just go ahead and make a reservation for a hotel in Bellevue,
Cool.
and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Mom.
Love you.
Love
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Seems like it doesn't matter. Whatever we say, the rules work for the Sure. To me, it seems it doesn't matter. We'll have to revisit this one, wouldn't you? Bigger deal would be, I think, if there were 2 guys of the same family for the same DEI.
Do you know how many miles you have? Because it's not 40,000. I thought it was.
I think I have 15 or 16.
The cheapest round trip is 22.7. I don't actually know if that's
What about money?
22.
Wow. What are the flight days and times?
The second at 6:15 a.m. and then the 5th, which arrives at 1 a.m. and leaves at 10. They're both nonstop.
overlap that we've been talking about. So we can break the work down a little bit smaller than that.
Well, for the construction, there are group of requirements that are generic, like for instance, it has to have provers, it has to go through, has to be through, I don't know if the X term, it has to go through a release process and be approved. Once it's approved, it's.
Did you do low fare calendar?
These are both low fare, but I didn't click a low fare calendar.
It's called low fare calendar
I didn't know that.
on Southwest,
This is
right?
a lot to track
Yeah, I'm on the app for it.
whether
I don't know if it's different.
Processing fails and then incorporating a ride that has to be backed up. On a specific airplane. And so, but anyway, that's a group of requirements that are independent. They're just generically related to any. And then there's also discussion of different GC modes. It makes sense what we want to take forward. I guess
We're defining offering override everything up until any equipment you have that override by third point. Then everything else will be how you have processing override. Is that how we phrase it?
I think there's a yeah.
We're not considering the main portion is the processing override. We're pushing the final 800.
Authoring for what attributes or what information is authored. Just set of attributes that are set in DGAC. We'll have a different set of attributes, and then there's to do with the authoring is what do we allow? Do we allow the only overrides? Do we have to select the corresponding entity to go with it? Go with the DEI? Do we have to select the entire accountability set to go with it? Those are all things we're going to discuss and make decisions about. I similar discussion as when we're moving something from configuration of an override. Entire ability set. There's the processing. We handle different. A lot of scenarios possible there. I think we need to work on the on-through part first because we have some decisions to make about how to impact later decisions, processing. I think those scenarios are dependent upon decisions we make.
This guy externally cleaned his carburetor before he disassembled it.
Smart.
This is
You could do that in the blue or in the other one.
the smacking one. Could I put both of them in it? Can you inspect them? I mean, I took all the extremities off that attached them together. But is there anything that would cause you to be concerned?
No.
Did you have an order that you want to go back to people that can do?
Well, I think there are some things we can work on. I don't really want to discuss some of these major decisions. Jeff, like,
Well, just after we do that, there must be a
Probably the same as you.
It's the same, yeah.
So I've got 16,000.
So what happens when you pay partly with miles?
I don't know, probably got to call Southwest or something.
discussed them once previously.
Yeah, we picked it up. That's what we'll do. But, I would think that's from plan of attack on the people.
Yeah, and there's questions like for GC modes, can he have different GC modes?
Maybe.
Oops. Dad, what if you guys, would the cost for a hotel be less if I wasn't there?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but you can ask.
Because depending on how much money you got from the insurance,
But Don sent out an email to the group
if you guys aren't staying as long as they thought you would need to,
querying like
then there would be some
out of the office. So what do you
extra. Not that it would need to go to me, but yeah.
I guess some of the supply chain management supply
Has Rick said he wants you up in Everett?
Oh, he's less flexible than Don, but so far, it's kind of a change for him from the past. Had to document our virtual plan as being there 2 days a week until we moved in, and then 3 days a week after that.
And I think Scott's been getting some places set up in the 10, 18.
Going there regularly.
Oh,
We know
okay.
for 2 days,
Wait, where did you pull that out of?
and they do have 4 dedicated hotel spots.
Yeah, well, I guess Dad Alexander's got people down there. Is that
26.
whatever?
Oh, 18.
Those are going to Rick in
Which is weird.
and he doesn't need to go into the way.
There's, I think he's going to be checking unless he's ordered convention. This, in the past, it's kind of like, I don't really want to know.
Oh, it's upside down.
Just don't tell me where you are. Yeah. We'll see. All right.
I think I'm going to do it today.
Yeah.
I need to meet with them for a while. And hopefully that will
Yeah, I'll find
Thanks, John. That was that. All right, so let's see what we got here. The tips that British guy was giving were very good. This is a different carburetor. This is an HIF 44.
Oh, is that why my pictures aren't matching up?
Yeah.
HIF?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, a late MGB.
What's that second guy, the old man? What you should know before tuning. Oh, okay. Yeah, that doesn't seem necessary. Well, that British guy, is that the one right there?
Yes.
Okay, and you watched some of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He talked a little bit about the theory, which was good, and the practice. Specifically, he talked about centering the jet as well as looking for flat spots of wear on the needles. Those are important things to do. Number 12. So you should get out your rebuild kit, and then you can take a look at it. You can refer to what those items are more efficiently.
Okay.
We also need to see if the rebuild kit contains bushings for the stock size throttle shaft, which I think it does. Depending on the amount of play that you have in your throttle shaft, we may or may not need to replace those as well. But Autosport is set up to do that work. I'm sure they have the pieces in stock to do it.
And then we've got I don't think we got a carb rebuild kit.
That'd be interesting. Because I ordered one. Look for a kit.
This thing?
Yeah. Really? I'm pretty sure we did.
37535. Let me check the order. Oh, that's the nice set. 375.
Chief, hold on.
Will do.
Brad here.
Hi, Brad. This is Isabel with the
Hi,
MGB.
dear.
Hi. How are you doing?
Oh, so far so good. Let me check out the status of room here. Hang
All
on.
right. Sounds good.
I
Thanks.
assume that's the reason you're calling.
Yes, it is.
Hang on.
I'm on the phone with Brad.
I can't hear you, but
I'm on the phone with Brad.
You can bring it down tomorrow. If you have to bring it down today, you can do it today, but tomorrow would be better for me.
Okay. Is there a time that would be better, or would morning be okay?
I'm fine. Yeah. So it works for me. That's my deal.
Go ahead.
yay, Brad! We're
Hey,
so
there.
excited. I've got like 5 to 10 thousandths play just off idle on the throttle shaft. Do you guys have shafts or bushings there?
Yep, yeah, we do.
Okay, cool. All right.
Excuse me. Okay, yeah, come on down. We'll have lots of fun.
Okay, tomorrow. All right.
We'll see you then. And thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Oh, it'll be fun. Talk to you then.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, so tomorrow I have a date with Hunter
Hunter.
down in Fort Lewis,
The other direction.
the other direction. So
What?
you're going to need to go by yourself,
Okay.
unless I was to take the day off.
I mean, if I just have help loading stuff in the car,
Yeah.
then that'd be fine. We do need to take a desk out. It's in the back of the truck.
What desk?
There's a standing desk that Mom got at work that I brought here, and then I totally forgot to take it out of the truck. I can take it out myself.
So you should brush that with a real brush outside, just above that. So you've got the tub. You take the thing out. You set it on its little bracket because it's got a bracket setter, and then you brush it with a brush like that, and it'll take that stuff off. Did you already brush it?
No.
Yeah, you want to take advantage of the fact that the stuff's solubilized, so use a brush on it. Here's a good one.
Mom called me.
So resolubilize it. Just dip it with your hand, and then brush it.
Did this just right back down here?
Yeah, and then brush it off. And if you want better
Anyway,
Hey,
gloves,
I was calling Autosport, and we can bring in the engine and everything else tomorrow. So I'm gonna go. Dad's gonna go see Hunter because they have a date. So that's all. That's tomorrow.
she's confused. She gets.
What?
There you go.
Thanks.
So that'll be for the left. That'll be a little more solvent resistant.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Um,
So just take that out and scrub it.
tomorrow you're going to bring the engine to Seattle and drop it off.
yes.
And something about Daddy that I don't understand the context.
Oh, he's going to somewhere with
Fort Lewis.
Hunter. He's going to Portland?
Fort Lewis.
Oh, Fort Lewis.
Wait, what?
Dad's going to Fort Lewis with Hunter tomorrow. I don't know what time.
You're going to Portland?
Fort Lewis.
Hunter and I are going to go on a shopping trip to a surplus store right at JBLM in the afternoon.
Do you need a pass to get in?
No. It's next to JBLM. It's not at JBLM.
Oh, next to JBLM. Okay. Well, that sounds like fun.
I'm going to put my shoes now. I lost them.
Cool. Alright. Well, I reserved the hotel based on the most recent comment from Isa that she may not be coming to stay with us, but I got the room that we can still get a rollaway in. It's a full-size rollaway So it doesn't fold in the middle, so it's just, it's like one bed and it has wheels, so they roll it up to your room. And so we can still get that, and then if we decide we don't want that hotel, we have to cancel by 6 p.m. tonight.
Okay.
But I got the Red Lion, which is in Bellevue. Cool. So,
That's great.
and you were asking me questions, and regarding splitting the cost and
You
all
asked
that.
us what if we split the cost in dollars? And I didn't totally understand what you mean.
Well, I don't know if Daddy's okay with using up all of his miles, but if we used up all of his miles and then to see how much it would cost, and split that in half, and then you would pay half and we would pay half. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I could do that. What might be better though is I don't know if Southwest does this, but you pay for like one trip in miles and then pay for the return, or the like of the two legs of a trip, the going there and then the coming back, you pay one in miles and you pay one in money. I don't know if that's something to do, but that would make more sense. Because then it wouldn't use all of Dad's miles.
Okay. Well, when you look at are you making an informed decision based on how much time you need to work on the car?
I haven't
Okay.
made a decision.
Okay, and then you had said certain days work better than others with the reservation.
Yeah, coming back on the 5th
So-
would be the best. And leaving Friday or Saturday would make no difference in money.
Okay, so you should make an informed decision. Find out look at all the options, and then look at the schedule of car work, and just make sure that you're totally aware of both sides, and make sure that you validate your need for mental health and all that kind of stuff. So you look at both sides completely, or as best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's another hotel. Wow, there are so many hotels in Tukwila. I'm getting gas at Costco. Is there
Maybe they're more
anything
desperate.
else we need at Costco?
Well, no, but if we had a hotel in Tukwila and they had covered parking, like security parking, I'd feel better about Tukwila, but mostly I don't want to be there. They got bad parking.
Yeah. The only thing that we're going to have to deal with is traffic if we drive places.
I know.
Because Bellevue is, like, getting through Factoria is pretty gross.
When?
I guess we could do Lake Hills Connect. Is it Lake Hills Connector?
Yeah, something like
not
that.
Lake Hills.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that it? The back way behind, like on off of 12? I mean, I don't think I really need to go anywhere because I can work from the hotel room. But I don't know how you're planning on doing it, Greg. If I got a suite, then one of us can work in one room, the other person can work in the other room. But that would be if we're at Large Car Landing in Tukwila.
I'm gonna be right here in the shop if I'm not sleeping.
Oh, okay. If you're not all sneaked out. Oh my gosh, there's the second family I've seen begging, and they're both Indian. So the people on the corner that are on Oakdale and Brady, they were there, and then there's another family waiting as you leave Costco. With children.
You know, gotta appeal. Okay,
Next
well,
stage is cripples.
yeah. And then crippled children.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they do that? Daddy talked about it in Mexico or something when
Yep.
he was that a make-believe story?
No, not make believe.
They cripple children, right?
Yep.
They cripple children or they make them look like damaged or something so people feel bad for them and then people give them more money.
Yep.
Wow.
It helps if they're not your children.
Because they can cripple them more.
Yep.
Okay, well,
No, I don't want to stay in Tacoma. After seeing 2 homeless families begging on the corners. So, I don't know what's going to happen at night, you know? I mean, if we're not, like, walking out to our car, how can we know that we're going to be okay? And then it's going to be another insurance claim.
Well, we'll talk about the trip thing and see if it's a good idea or not. And I'll do as you suggest and make an informed decision.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go clean this carburetor.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. I love you.
Love you too.
Bye, babe.
Bye.
So take advantage of the fact that you've got one in there right now that's solubilized, and scrub that solubilized one and put this one back in there.
Okay.
What's that? Oh, good. There's a lot of stuff that's still coming off here. Better though. Stuff's still coming off, but yeah. We will. Well, we have a couple other cleaning solutions as well. One cleaning solution is the basic cleaner, a light basic cleaner in the ultrasonic. Another cleaning solution is the product that is specifically made for cleaning carburetors, which you don't know about yet. But it's, I forgot exactly what it is, but we have it. It's a dip tank for aluminum and other carburetor parts that is, you may have seen people on the internet use it.
Yeah.
It's very aggressive. It's very efficient. The solvent is brand new right now, which means it's more aggressive and efficient than it otherwise would be later. I haven't used it on anything because I bought it for this project.
Oh,
So
okay.
that would be worth trying.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So the guy in this video I've just been watching, I think he said he used a dip tank, but his, like, these things were off, this was off,
okay.
things that I just weren't.
It will eat anything that's plastic.
Regarding the potential of me leaving to go to Phoenix for the weekend, I feel I would be comfortable with that if I got to a certain point in the hours on the sheet by the time that I would leave.
Well, that's probably the most reasonable way to make the decision. The other piece of input I would say you need is look at the total amount of work left and the total amount of days left and decide. This isn't a determining factor, but it is a factor. Decide if you are going to be in a better position to get the car done if you leave, or if you're going to be in a better position to get the car done if you stay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily an obvious choice. It does need to be considered because a lot of the project pace that you're working with, the variability in the pace, has to do with psychological factors. And so we can certainly expect a boon in your psychological productivity if you leave.
Mm-hmm. That's Mom's biggest motivator.
Well, she knows more about being a woman, so that may be ultimately the most compelling aspect.
Yeah, in the last half an hour, I've been experiencing physical reactions to the contemplation of actually going and then coming back and then having like a kind of body group, but then also seeing Benjamin. And it makes my heart beat really fast.
Great. It's a good stressful reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That
So
makes
maybe
perfect sense.
when you're done with your meeting, you can look at the hours and think about it. Are you aware of where Scooter is?
I am not.
Okay. Is it smart to take apart carburetors without
Yeah, it's fine.
parts to put them back together?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I can start taking this apart.
Yeah.
Are you aware of when Autosport opens? I feel like it was 9. The guy in this video said that this port was really dirty for him, but it does not look dirty for me.
Port.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Typically, that's where all the goo settles. Any particulates that make it past the various fuel filters, or any decomposing rubber or plastic parts or sediments in the line, are going to end up there. However, some people put a filter right before the carburetors to minimize some of the line issues.
Mm.
Do you want to work there, or do you want to work on the black thing?
Well, I was doing it here because I have paper towels here, but I guess I can do paper towels here just because there's little bits of stuff coming out.
Sure, and that's okay to put on that polyethylene. It's well able to deal with it.
Okay.
Those hoses you won't be needing anytime soon, so we could put those in a box or something. Like this box. How about some burgers and fries? Oh, it looks so clean.
The float chamber.
That is the float bowl or float chamber.
It's a small thing.
How's the drive number 2? For the jet lever.
For what?
The jet lever. there's a lever at the bottom of the jet. The jet. There's a lever. So when you put the choke on, it drops the jet down, which increases the size of the opening for the Venturi effect.
Okay.
And that gives you more fuel. You might also want to note the number of turns out each of these is, or the number of flats out. And when I say out, I mean from dead stop in. So let's say if I turn this one flat, hang on, and write this in your project notebook.
This thing, I got this thing over here.
So if you're,
Just not big enough.
let's pretend that I turned this clockwise in. Oh, hang on. Let's pretend I didn't strip it out. Like that. And it stopped because it was all seated all the way down. That would be one flat. So count the number of flats it takes to drive that home until it won't go anymore. And then record that number for the right carburetor. Now that's just an initial setting, but it allows you to get to a place where at least you know the car was running previously. Because this is your mixture control, fuel mixture.
Okay, is it at one flat now?
No, I reset it back to the way that it was when we bought the car. So if we were to tighten it,
Like, do you feel a stopping point? How do you know it's...
well, see there's brass threads,
Yeah.
those will go away. So here's one flat in,
That doesn't go away, though. It's just...
well, you might be 16 flats out.
Right, but how do you measure one flat?
A flat on the nut. Okay, I'm gonna bring
What?
it to another one. Watch this. See how that's right there? When
That's-
another one takes its place right there, now you're two flats
But
in.
how do you know that's in the same position? What are you measuring it against?
The visual angle relative to the carburetor. Oh, see, now I screwed it up. This is it right here, right?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure that's it. So
How do you know?
I don't know. Okay, so this is, or we could just say this is the very front of the carburetor. This face is the front, right? Okay, so now you're going to turn it
Right, you just
clockwise.
line it up with...
Great,
put a line
whatever.
on that block.
Okay. Okay. So this is the jet holder, and then this is the jet adjuster.
Okay.
And if you tighten this thing all the way until you can't tighten it anymore, then note that number of flats that you've turned it in. You probably want to remove this lever first so you get a lot better swing on that thing. And you might take the float bowl off to get the angle right or not. I don't know.
What?
You might have to take the float bowl off.
What's that? Global?
Float bowl.
Global. I think he's working on it. Did he take this thing off already? I think he did. 2 on it.
The carburetor
Mhm.
on the dashpot?
Yeah.
Huh.
These are really tightened on here. I want to be careful, make sure I don't strip these.
Correct.
Yeah.
Set it on
Did it
something.
go?
There we go. This screwdriver doesn't fit very well. Can you see that? It's got a lot of play in it.
Oh, is that what is
You
it?
can use the other snap-on, that might be better. I don't know if it's too big or not. The other thing you can use is I have these bits, which are gunsmithing bits. See how they're all different thicknesses?
Mhm.
You can really precisely find the thickness that meets your need because it's meant for working on old firearms. This came from Leo. That's not even big enough. So then we go to this other, well, you can try the snap-on one, this guy here. This is probably the highest quality screwdriver I have. If it fits tightly, then it's perfect. If it doesn't, we'll get you a different one. Does it go down all the way? No, it's not right. You're really wise to be careful about this stuff. So I've got, this one is pretty fat. That's about go see how that one fits. I also have another one that might be a little bit different.
This is better.
Okay, let's try this one out.
Feel the same.
That's a special bit because if you look at the way that it's cut, it's been cut with a curved shape into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's called hollow ground. If you look at this snap-on, it's been cut at an angle like that.
And this one has a curve, right?
Yeah, so it's you get a better contact point.
Mm.
Oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. So let's get you an extension.
Where'd this one go?
One of those right there.
65. Oh, 6.5.
Okay, so here's this, and then you can flip out that guy.
That's cool.
It really is. It's Makita.
Yeah, so I don't think we got a carburetor to build kit.
We neglected to get the kit? Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm sure they have that stuff at Autosport.
These are nice screws.
They really are.
Some of the metal's definitely gotten roughed up at the end of the tab.
That's because people use suboptimal screwdrivers and they let them cam out. They don't care as much as you do. Now to get these off, what I usually do is I'll cradle it in my hand and hit it gently with a green hammer.
Okay. So this comes from here.
Yeah, you can just keep that out. Just keep that screwdriver there.
So this just popped out.
What's that? Great. That's even easier. Okay. And there's your needle, and you're going to be looking to see how worn that thing is. Well, it's different and doesn't matter, but
Different than worn.
don't. Okay. So this is going to fall on the ground and break, so you have to hold it like that. But you should sit over there so you can see it on camera. That way, when you are looking at it in the future, it'll all make more sense. It'll make as much sense as possible.
As part of the modernization,
Yeah.
are you guys thinking about or working on?
Not quite on screen. This is your screen too. Yeah. And that you can clean up very gently with some probably brass wool. Nothing more abrasive. I mean, that's the most abrasive thing I would use.
I think we got a needle.
We did.
I thought I saw one.
We didn't get a rebuild kit, but we got a needle. That doesn't make sense. Here's the bronze wool.
Carburetor float needle.
Oh, that's a different needle.
2 needles.
Yeah, there are different needles that do different things.
There's only one needle in here. Oh, does this come off?
Standards affected by this? Do you have folks involved in provide maybe some heads up on something like this? Like, is there anything? Is there a way yeah,
And so he took just the cap off. That came off for him. This
Yeah,
is.
just pull that out. Well, rotate the pole.
Oh, okay.
Lovely. And then that spring is hopefully the same height, left carburetor and right carburetor. Hopefully those are decent.
Oh, I have low battery. Do you have a charger?
They do. So you might want to do a measurement on this guy and say standing height is. Okay, so that's for the right carburetor. What was it that you just asked me for?
Charger?
The charger, yes. It's right here.
That's interesting.
Thanks, Robert. And yeah, great stuff. I'm a user of Radar's really good.
Very, here's a great compliment. This is a complicated project with a lot of business impact. Well done, sir. You're doing it. Stop that. Excellent. Okay, with that, it is 1:58. 8 minutes of your life, work lifestyle today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining in. And again, just a reminder that we're not going to have a camp meeting next week. And I hope everybody has a fun
was that? I don't know what that's from. We're just supposed to sit around. Everybody's content to sit around. You could leave that in there overnight too. It's not coming out super great.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was dirtier than the other one.
Oh, good. You found the charger. Yep.
Want to look at hours?
Yep. Totally do. Totally want to look at hours.
Swing.
Okay. If you go to EC, I gave you a new entry for cut and buff the areas of the firewall, but I didn't give it any time because I gave it 4 hours. Because, anyway, yeah. I guess I went back and forth on giving it no time. But so that's something you could do if you wanted. Right now, I would suggest continuing on with the carburetors. I think this is a great thing. Get those guys. You're going to want to take them down to where they're just the, well, we could call it the throttle body, even though that's not conventional. This portion here, especially with the with this guy removed, and then once you have that, you take it into. Actually, I guess you could just leave this on, because what you're going to be doing is asking Brad, hey, is this level of vertical play right off idle, because that's the most crucial, although it's the same here. Is that amount of play acceptable? And you're checking the radial play. Now on full throttle it doesn't matter, but right off of idle, if you have a significant amount of air leaking across the shaft and in through here and bypassing the openings top and bottom, that air is not being metered. So the way this thing works, well, do you understand how it works? Do you understand any part of it?
Well, I can look at this and understand there's a damping thing happening. I don't know what the purpose is.
Okay.
This probably moves back and forth to allow, it's a valve opening,
The rotation that you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called a butterfly valve,
butterfly valve.
and it allows more air to come into the engine.
I know there's a flotation thing in here,
Mm-hmm.
which we need to check for bubbles.
And its function is to make a consistent height of fuel always available.
Consistent height of fuel always available.
Right.
Okay. Other than that, I don't. That is what I.
So there's an inlet line. Let's say this is the inlet and this is the outlet, or maybe it's the other way, it doesn't matter. There's always a slight amount of fuel pressure available, 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds, above the little tapered needle seat valve that closes off. And just like in a toilet, that float comes up and it presses on the seat, closing off the flow of fuel. When that float falls down on its pivot, because the fuel has been evacuated from the cylinder, from this container, then the fact that the float pivots away from the needle drops the needle into an open position, and more fuel flows into that bowl until the float rises again and closes it off.
Oh, fuel goes in here?
Mm-hmm. Through this pipe or that pipe.
So
It's always full with a very consistent amount of fuel.
we take fuel from the back,
Mhm.
bring it all the way to the front
Mhm.
handle. Does it go from here to the engine?
Yeah, this is where it goes into the engine, right in this spot here. It goes through that pipe into the jet.
And that goes into the
That gets sucked in
pistons.
into the engine, yeah, into the area where the
And
pistons
then-
are.
That gets processed back out again to the same area where the exhaust is, and
Correct.
gets taken out to the back of the car.
Right. Once it's converted to CO2 and H2O. So we need a very specific level of fuel in these bowls, and if you tilt the carburetors at the angle that they're at installed in the engine, that's about where this is level like this. And that level is determined by the shape of this rubber bushing here that has like an angled nubbin in it that fits in the carburetor body and in the float bowl. So carburetors sit like that in the car. This thing, by virtue of the fact that the flow control is a float, means that the float is going to tightly regulate the level in here, and that level is going to be only slightly below the level of the jet in the carburetor. So you're always going to have, hydraulically, you're going to have a hydrostatic pressure between here and here. You'll always have a tiny bit of fuel. The surface of it is right inside there. And then you close that off. You see this is the tapered needle.
Mm-hmm.
When the needle is all the way down, let's see, this thing sits like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the needle's all the way down. It doesn't completely fill the jet. There's an annular space. The jet being this hole. The little, oh, is this thing still on choke? Let's de-chokeify it. Why won't that go up there? Oh my god. We have to pretend that that thing comes all the way up and almost fits at the top.
The
jet is seized. I don't know why the jet is seized, but you'll unscrew that screw and unseize the jet at some point. It's seized in the jet holder. So when this needle is in the jet, there's an annular space, and that's the space that the fuel can come and flow out of. So what happens is you create a negative pressure above that point, and it sucks the fuel right out.
Negative pressure above the...
Above this bridge.
Okay.
How do you get a negative pressure above the bridge? If you have a flow condition, how do you get a negative pressure? Or a lower pressure, let's say. It's relatively negative. It's absolutely... Well, it's absolutely negative, too. Maybe not. It's absolutely negative relative to ambient, but it's relatively negative to ambient. But in absolute, it's higher than zero. How do you get a negative pressure over that bridge? A relatively negative pressure. How do you get a relatively negative pressure in any flow state, any flow scenario?
Well, a higher pressure situation is would be if you could get higher pressure in an area if you have suction, right? Some kind of
Suction would give you a lower pressure.
what?
Sucking is low pressure.
Oh, I twisted things around in my mind. I thought about that, and then I thought, oh, that's high pressure, so I have to think about the opposite, and I, for some reason, couldn't think of the opposite of suction, except, like, just flow.
So let's say you have a flow state.
Okay, so suction, and that would be using flow. You want to make the flow go away from the place you want low pressure.
If you're going axially, what about if you're going normally?
You mean going normally?
Did you study Bernoulli's principle?
Kinda.
What do you remember about it?
I know the equation.
What's the equation?
P over... Wait. Yeah. P1 over rho G. No. Not... Yeah. Yes. P1 over rho G plus V1 squared over 2G plus Z1 is equal to P2 over rho G plus V2 squared over 2G plus Z2. That's just the basic one.
Z1 and Z2 are the same, and
If Z1 and Z2 are the same, then it just becomes the difference in P is equal to V2 squared minus V1 squared over 2G.
and G is the gravity constant.
Yeah.
And
Rho is the density of the...
I didn't hear you say rho in the last telling. I said if Z1 and Z2 are the same, and did you mention rho then also?
Oh, never, hang on, it's... G is not in the equation, the final one.
Okay.
But rho is, and it would actually be in the numerator, not below. So it's rho over 2 times the difference in V2 squared and V1 squared.
Okay, so the difference in velocity squared has
Okay. Sure.
the difference in the squares of the velocities
Yeah.
has a concurrent or inverse effect on the pressure.
Concurrent.
Okay.
Because they're both on the numerators of their sides of the equation, and it's just their scales of the of row over. No, wait. 2 is 2 there? 2's there. Row over 2.
If you hold a Erlenmeyer flask, the tapered ones, you know,
No.
a graduated, no. Here we'll just. Oh, you know what? Think about the detailed spray gun that you used yesterday or Sunday or Monday, I guess. How did that work? What was the mechanics that were at play?
Well, we have air, compressed air coming through the top tube, and it comes out in a small, out of a small nozzle.
Orifice, yeah. Or I guess it's a nozzle.
And it's right over a small nozzle, another small nozzle that is part of, that opens up to a tube with access to paint, and the high velocity relate to a lower pressure, or does that not matter? Because when the air was going across, it was pulling up the paint.
Okay.
And you said something about it because the air going across the tip of the second nozzle was creating a lower pressure area, which drew out paint.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
So
In technical terms, not really. In seeing it and watching it happen and thinking about it physically, yes. But when I say it in the technical terms, I don't really understand why it's happening.
Well, I'm not sure I understand why it's happening either. But what I tend to think is that if you have a field of a volumetric field of molecules, of air molecules, let's say, they all touch each other, or they all influence each other in a way, some kind of forceful way. They resist each other, and they also attract each other. So they obtain some kind of a balance. And that balance is the pressure that's exerted between each of them. If you move two molecules away from each other, they'll try to move closer back together, if all else being equal. Like, let's say they're at an equilibrium position. If you try to separate them, they'll want to come back together. Now, maybe because they're being pushed by their friends behind them, like a mosh pit. Or it may be because they're so close together that they, even without anybody else, they want to be there. If you push them together closer, they'll want to separate. And if you push them together closer, that's increasing pressure, and if you pull them apart, they're going to separate, lower pressure in that area, right?
They're going to separate lower pressure in that area?
They're going to separate, which is equivalent to a lower pressure. If you grab them and pull them apart, there becomes a net attractive force between them.
What are these things again?
They're air molecules. Just H2O, O2, N2, all the stuff that makes up air.
So going like this
Bringing them closer together.
creates a higher pressure
Between them.
volumetric area? Or not?
Well, if you back it up with like all their friends behind them are pushing them in together, You have to apply force to them to get them to come close
This
together.
is lower pressure.
And pulling them apart means in between them there's a lower pressure they want to suck back together.
Is this doing anything work in my hands right now?
Yeah, grabbing each of the molecules and pulling them away from each other or pushing them closer together.
So right now there's.
Oh, you're saying at the table here?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you squeeze your hands together, it's just like you're doing it underwater, except you're in air, same fluid, right? We're just going to squish out, right?
It goes.
Yeah, they go all the.
Or when I go
molecules.
like this with my hand,
Yeah,
and you can feel the vacuum.
yeah. So,
I was fascinated by that as a kid.
great. It's wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Hashtag me too. So if you take a straw and you stick it out the window of the car in which you're riding, and you stick it normal to the flow direction, what happens?
That whistle.
Well, what happens to the fluid inside the straw? The air inside the straw? Is the air pressed into the vehicle? Is the air sucked out of the vehicle? What
Probably
happens?
sucked out if only one end is in the flow.
Only one end is in the flow.
So
Right. That's the Bernoulli principle in action. I like to think of it as nothing presses against the molecules of air in the straw because they're moving fast. They're moving by so quickly. They don't have time or ability or whatever to press into the straw. And therefore, the fact that there's pressure in the car, 14.7 psi, it means that it's going to shoot those molecules. They're going to shoot into that stream. Now, exactly why doesn't make total sense to me, but
now, is the car pressure compared to the outside air pressure lower or higher?
we're going to assume that the air pressure inside the car is equal to the air pressure outside of the car. The only difference is
At the tip of the straw?
at the tip of the straw.
Okay. This is sounding more like the problems we have to deal with in fluids.
Okay.
Because we would have to identify, look at point A and look at point B and use Bernoulli and
Yeah.
answer this question, or decide where points A and B are, or whatever.
Yeah. So in this system, there are 4 points that we care about. And if you look at this diagram, now this is the HIF carburetor, it's a little bit different. It doesn't. I wonder if it actually tells you how the thing works. No, this is fuel pump. Sometimes these books are really cool and they give you a theory on how this stuff works. Just because they think people who are working on the car care about the theory. So if you look at that, it doesn't really. Is that HIF 44? No, that's not it. HS4. Does it give a description?
This you took HS4.
Oh. Read that. Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't say anything about it. Okay.
Carburettor.
Carburettor.
Do they change how it's spelled?
Yeah, they do. Okay, so air is going to flow across here. This is like point A, point B, point C, and then you've got up here point D.
Okay.
D is the damper, B is the bridge, A is the intake, and C is the engine side. So the engine's going to suck here because the pistons are going to draw that volume open like a syringe. And when they draw it open, they're going to pull air across this bridge, open over the bridge. What's the pressure condition right at the bridge? If this field, A, B, C, what's the pressure state? A, B, and C. How do they relate to each other?
I guess A and C are the same,
A and C are almost exactly the same.
and B is a higher pressure.
And B is a lower pressure.
Lower pressure.
Because if you take this air and you force it, or you suck it from C, and you try to go through, it's going to be going over a very small, it's going to be a reduced area. You can see the reduced size. So in order for equilibrium of matter, it's going to have to speed up as it goes across that small size.
Yeah.
So if your flow rate is
Think about
3
velocity.
here, and flow rate is 3 here, well, your flow rate's got to be 4 there.
Oh, because Q equals AV. Smaller. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a greater velocity through here.
There has to be, because it's a reduced cross-sectional area.
Does that mean there's less pressure?
It absolutely means there's less pressure than A and C. Yes. Because
You didn't make that connection in class, or maybe I just didn't.
so you're coming in here in A,
Uh-huh.
jumping up over the bridge, and there's even a little extra like lip there,
Yeah.
like a skateboard jump lip, so it really flips up over the top.
Uh-huh.
And then it goes back down the other side, which means that B is at a low pressure. Just like your paint gun, it's going to suck fuel right out of the jet. Oh, sorry, it sucks fuel out of the jet and it goes into the airstream.
Oh, and this. Wait. From here?
It comes in 4, it comes up 3, comes up 2, and it sits at the top. See how the jet is really close to the top of the jet holder there? The top of the jet is right there. You've got a little bit of space to the top of the jet holder, which is flush with the B bridge, the bridge B. But then the jet itself is just a little bit lower. And then you've got this needle that tries to seal the jet to close it off, but there's a little bit of an annular space. Just a small amount. Well, the size of that annular space is critical.
Okay.
Because as you know, an annulus has a huge area. So if you raise this needle up, you can see it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. So the more you raise it up, the bigger the annular space gets.
Okay.
If you raise it up a half an inch or something, well, now you've got a wider annular space for fuel to flow through. The bridge is a fixed distance above the bore. This little height change here. So the air comes in and jumps up over the bridge and then goes back down. The more flow you get in this system, the piston rises automatically on its own. There's an air connection right here in the back side of the piston. And it causes C to be the same pressure as D in the damper. So as this velocity increases, this pressure goes lower. As the engine sucks harder and goes faster, the pressure goes lower, and it goes lower in D, which raises this up. This space right here is exposed to ambient air. I guess that would be E. That space right there is ambient. So the space right underneath here, this space here is ambient. And I'm not sure where that ambient comes from, but somewhere.
Well, wait.
So this is A here. This is B. C. D. E. D is connected to C via this passageway, which is right here, these two openings.
D is connected to C.
Mm-hmm. By this. So they show the passageway on the side of the piston. In reality, the passageway is at the bottom of the piston. You can see here it's got like little flow smoothness to it. That's this junction. They show it here, but it's actually right there.
Okay.
So now C and D are equal pressures.
So D and A are equal pressure.
D and A are not equal pressures.
You said
C
A
is lower than A because there's an efficiency loss across the bridge.
Oh, are we playing real stuff and not just fake problems and fluids?
We have to play real stuff because that's how this thing actually works. We can't play fake stuff in fluids totally.
Consider the weight of the object. Ah!
Consider air resistance.
Consider friction.
Now E is above pressure A because A is a flow state itself. There's an air horn that comes like that, right? And then you got some screws or whatever. There's a little air horn that comes like that, and the air cleaner, the air comes in like so
Okay.
from your air.
Oh, the circle thing?
Yeah, the circle thing. So the air comes in, and
Do we not have this screw here?
that's a lifting.
Piston.
Yeah, piston lifter. So you just lift that up right here. What that does is it expands the surface area or the volumetric area or the volume over the bridge to the point that this system essentially stops working. All right, so all that was to try to introduce you to the idea of a venturi. As air flows over here, low pressure air sucks fuel out and goes into the engine. That would work fine at a constant state.
Right.
If you want to accelerate the car, if you want to operate at different RPMs, you need to do different things. When the car is idling, this piston is almost all the way down. It's just hovering above there the tiniest bit. The idle condition is a static running condition. Go ahead.
And this needle here is fixed in relation to the
It is.
piston here,
Mhm.
but it moves down and up here.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. As you increase the RPM of the engine, this piston will necessarily rise. Why? Well, because increased flow here will necessitate all those molecules of air are going to come up here like this, and they're going to push up on the bottom of the piston and lift it up. And as C has a lower pressure than ambient, as you suck harder, C has a lower pressure than ambient, and it's going to depressurize D relative to E, which is ambient, and it's going to also cause the piston to lift. So the piston's going to go up, 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 up. Hopefully, when you're at maximum RPM, the piston is going to be closer to the top of its travel. As you open the throttle, let's say you open that butterfly valve to whatever, full throttle. As you open that, the piston doesn't rise right away. It doesn't rise right away because the pressure here, you get a little bit of a burst of flow, but mostly it's not much different across here.
What's moving through this space?
Air. Ambient air. Well, at a lower pressure than ambient. This piston rises as engine RPM rises, and it also rises when you mash the throttle. It's a balanced system, this piston is, and it's one of the magical things about this carburetor because it allows the carburetor to deal with altitude changes much more elegantly than any American carburetor. An American carburetor has fixed size jets. This has a variable size jet depending upon how far this needle is and how big the annular space is. But on an American car, you only get one fixed jet size. It's really crude. You have to retune your car, replace the jets. If you go from here we are at sea level and you go up to 2,000 feet, your car is going to run lean. The MGB is not going to run lean because the height of this piston is determined solely by the pressure difference between E and D. And E is ambient. So if E goes down because you've gone up to a higher level, well then D doesn't have as much suction to pull up anymore.
So this system is more efficient when you're at a lower RPM?
This system is more efficient across all ranges. What do you mean? A lower RPM?
Yeah.
The lower altitude?
Did you said RPM, right? When you said that would cause E to go down?
Oh, E goes down at a lower altitude. If I said RPM, I made a
oh.
mistake. If you're at sea level, E is the highest it's going to be. Unless you go below
the system
sea.
is more efficient than if you were in Prescott?
Well, I don't think the efficiency changes too much between Seattle and Prescott. One
Okay.
could argue that the frictional losses, which actually are a benefit, yeah, there's sort of a plus and a minus to having fewer molecules in the air or in space around the car. It doesn't totally compensate for altitude perfectly, though, and I think that's maybe what you're getting at. And
Yeah.
so people use high altitude needles if they spend a lot of time above like 8,000 feet. But the cool thing is you can set, because this is on a taper, you can actually set where you are in the taper just by unscrewing that jet holder, or the jet, from the jet adjusting that from the holder. You just unscrew it a flat or two to increase the richness, or tighten it up in there. You tighten it up in there to make it leaner because it closes off that angular space. So the piston rises because of one of two conditions. It rises because the engine RPM has gone up, which means that there's more velocity across here, or it rises because this butterfly valve is open further, which means there's more velocity across here. That causes the piston to go up, which allows more air in, which, as the piston goes up, you lose the pressure difference across B. Imagine if the piston went all the way up to here. Well, now your difference between D1 and DB here is very small, right?
D1 and DB?
Well, or I could say DO. This distance here, this is the, what is it?
DC and DB?
Yeah, DC.
Okay.
DC. And this one here is DB. The distance would be.
Yep.
Yeah, write that. So right now, DCDB is very large.
DC, DB is large.
Yeah. But if you bring the piston, and thus DC, let's pretend it was this tall, DC and DB would be essentially the same. You would get no bridging effect. You would get no Venturi effect. The higher this piston gets away from that bridge, the less of an effect the Venturi has. But those are the conditions under which you need more fuel. So how do you get more fuel out of a less efficient Venturi? You decrease the size of the needle, which opens up the annular space bigger.
Okay.
These are really cool because they can deal with a variety of engine speeds and throttle positions, this being the throttle position, directly controlled. And they can do it across different altitudinal settings. So it's a magical carburetor from that perspective. For that reason, the clearance fit between this, what would be the piston rings and the engine, this doesn't have rings, it just has a tight fit between here and the the damper housing, this, it has to be at really tight clearance. So if you get one of these that's worn out, you need to replace the piston and the dash pot. You might as well just get a new carburetor. You also need the clearance between this and this guy to be the valve body, I guess you'd say, and the piston to be tight, but it doesn't need to be as tight as this.
I think both were pretty good.
Yeah. The fact that this one was seized,
This
the
came
rust.
out easier from here than this came out from
Yeah,
here.
well,
so,
I think there was some rust in this area
So,
up in here because I don't know what happened to the oil, but the oil's gone.
okay.
Anyway, there's a certain set point at which this thing wants to sit. The piston wants to sit higher than the bridge, depending on the angle of the throttle and the amount of engine RPM or the flow across the system. There'll be a specific set point for this to balance in pressures between D and E plus whatever the spring and the what do you call it? The gravity effect on this piston. So all those four forces balance together, which means that this has a specific height that it wants to be at. However, during transitory throttle conditions, that is, if you're driving along on the freeway and you mash the throttle all the way down, you don't necessarily want this piston to jump up to its new setting right away because the engine RPMs take a while to get there. You want this piston actually to be a little bit slow to respond, because if it's slow to respond, you get much more flow across B and it sucks out extra fuel. And when you're accelerating, a little extra burst of fuel going richer than is normally needed for regular speed running is beneficial. It's also called accelerator pump. And that's one of the things that American cars do better than British carburetors, is they use an active accelerator pump. So if you mash your foot down on the throttle on an American car, it actually just squirts raw fuel into the intake. Same with an Italian Weber carburetor. It has a real accelerator pump on it. These don't have an accelerator pump. They have a pseudo-passive accelerator pump. And what that means is they don't respond under your foot as aggressively as an American carburetor or an Italian Weber carburetor. So oftentimes people don't think of SUs as performance carburetors because when you mash the throttle, they don't do a lot. You don't get that rush like you do in an American car or an Italian car. Some people put those Italian carburetors on their MGs to get that rush of a real accelerator pump. Of course, with fuel injection, you control all that according to a fueling table, which takes into account all these factors, and you can have whatever you want. But as a machine goes, this carburetor would be better if it had a real accelerator pump. That would be great, but they don't have it. It's not something they designed in. And I think it was just a cost thing. Because what happens is there's a fluid in here, 7. It's a liquid, it's an oil, and it's meant to rush past a very tight-fitting cylinder and piston arrangement.
Yeah, look at that.
In order for the piston to rise, liquid has to flow through, because this fits tightly to this thing here. Mm-hmm. The fluid, this oil, has to flow through this annular space between these two circles. It has to flow up in here. So these dash pots need to be filled with oil up to a certain distance.
I poured it out.
That's fine. You know, we've got new stuff. I think shock fluid probably works. I think the book calls for SAE 20.
Is it the shock fluid that's filled in the...
Yeah, but that's for the dampers. The
other dampers?
Yeah. This is the damper also.
Yeah.
You can change the viscosity of the fluid in here to get more accelerator pump action. The problem with this accelerator pump, not only is it not active, it actively blocks the airflow. Because the piston's hanging out down there in the middle of the space, it's blocking your ability to get air in. So on an American car, when you open the throttle butterflies, you get an immediately full open passageway. You get lots of air sucking in. Same with the Italian carburetors. You get lots. Same with the fuel-injected carburetor. The SU, you don't get that. You have to wait for the piston to move against the spring at the speed of the damper to get up and out of the way. All the time, the SU carburetor is adding an extra fuel through this overdriven Venturi now because you've got way too many molecules coming through here, so it really overdrives the Venturi, sucks a bunch of extra fuel, but at the expense of having the piston get the hell out of the way and allow extra air into the engine.
Okay.
So these carburetors are one type of compromise that was reached, and they turned out not to be efficient enough. They didn't control the mixture well enough into the after 1974, maybe 73, because nobody used them after that in America. There's one more thing, which is you notice that they don't have it on this diagram, but on this one, you'll see that there's this doodad. What does that do? A pop-off valve within the butterfly itself.
Pop-off valve within. That's not pictured here.
It's not. They didn't include it in this one. It's probably something that came in the late 60s as a result of emission controls.
I don't know what would engage with that other than the flow.
The flow. And when would that valve tend to change its state from closed to open?
When there's high pressure, so it releases.
Correct. So
Volume.
when would that be the case?
When something is wrong here.
What would happen here is if this is closed. If this is closed and yet there was still a massive amount of suction.
It would build up the pressure. Oh wait, suction?
On the engine side.
Is it the engine side?
Yeah.
There's a massive amount of suction that would pull this.
It would pull that open and it would relieve some of the
Suction.
This
Okay. Would it work opposite? Is there an opposite function as well, or is it only for there's high suction on this side?
It's only if there's high suction. It's to limit the amount of suction that exists in the inlet manifold. That's the purpose of this. It puts an upper ceiling.
The inlet manifold is
That red thing with the pipes that goes into the cylinder head. And that would occur when you let your foot off the gas at high RPM. So let's say you're driving down the mountain and you're in third gear and you're at like 4,000 RPM and you let your foot completely off the gas. You close this butterfly completely, but the engine's sucking really hard. It's trying to suck really hard. And so what this does is it lets a little bit of air come through.
okay.
And I think the reason it does that is because they want to lean out the mixture just a bit. A lot of times on old cars, if you let off the gas, but you're still in gear, you'll hear them go pop, 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 pop. It's called backfire on overrun. I don't know, have you ever heard that in the E-Type? You let off the gas and it goes pop, 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 like that. Well, that's what this will do if this valve is not fitted. And the reason is because when you're at full throttle and you're running big, 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 big fuel like this, if you close this thing all of a sudden, you still have a lot of fuel in here. It hasn't been sucked into the engine yet. So for a brief moment, when the flow goes way down, you still have a whole bunch of fuel. And there's excess fuel in there. And so it causes a rich mixture and doesn't fully burn in the cylinder, and then it burns in the exhaust in a big pop.
Wait. I thought you said it's air that goes through here.
It is, but once you're over the bridge B, now you've got entrained fuel molecules because they get sucked right out of the jet.
And that fuel is in a gassy state.
It is, yeah. It's they call it atomized, which I'm not sure why they use that term, but it means that individual molecules of fuel are separate from each other.
Okay.
So anyway, what a lot of people do is they'll solder this shut. Sounds like Marla's here.
Marla's here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let's see.
For fun? Or for what?
Anyway, that was a whole lot of theory, and it probably went over your head and out the other side. Totally understandable. It's a lot to take in one session, and my ability to describe it is not well attuned to a learner. It's been a long time since I learned about this, so I don't really remember what it takes to get over the bridge of ignorance to understanding.
I feel like it's changed a little bit from all the things you said.
The fact that there's a bunch of crap on this needle, it's going to restrict the fuel that can flow out of that annular space. So that's not good. If there's a flat spot on that, it's going to increase the annular space. So then you get too much fuel. The tapered profile of this needle is critical to determining how the system responds at different rates of flow. Now this needle is spring loaded. It's got a little, well, it's not a very active spring, but you can see it goes back up when I touch it.
Yeah.
And they did that to try to get some level of consistency. Because what would happen otherwise is the needle would whap back and forth under certain conditions, and it would make it run really weird. So they just said, well, we'll preload it to one side. Okay, that's fine. Now all of a sudden it's consistent, but it's going to wear the needle. So they just chose needle longevity to be sacrificed in the name of smooth running, which is fine. Earlier carburetors had a fixed needle. They didn't wiggle like this. If I pushed it down, it wouldn't come back up under spring pressure.
My needle don't wiggle. Okay, yeah. There's a joke in there. Okay.
So we'll want to check. I mean, you can see which way this thing is biased. It should have wear marks on it on that side. It might be advisable just to take this in as is to show Brad and say, here's the condition of this part. And he'll look at it and he'll say, oh, well, that is, yeah, it needs to be replaced or whatever. And there are needle charts that tell you the diameter of that needle at different points, 1/16 of an inch increments.
The notch on the black layer. About 1 o'clock.
Oh, I didn't see that. Look at that. Yeah. Huh. I don't know. Anyway, it'll be interesting to bring this into those guys and see what they say.
Oh, well, there's a notch on the needle.
Does it rotate in there?
Yeah.
No, I mean, does the needle rotate in the holder or not really?
Yeah, it does. It's going around
Okay.
and around.
Oh, I can see a little bit of wear directly underneath. It's about 4 millimeters down from the top. There's a little wear spot here on the needle itself.
Yeah, I see that. What a funny shape.
Now, on later versions of this style of carburetor made by a different company, you raise and lower the needle to change mixture. But raising and lowering the jet is much better.
What's the jet again?
The jet is this thing here.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, which for some reason is stuck on yours. I don't know why. I don't know why it's stuck. Kind of unfortunate. We just pop this screw out of here. When you put the choke on, it actually forcibly moves the jet down. Here, take that screw out, and then you can see why the jet is stuck. Now the choke is off. So if you twist that jet, you should be able to pull it out. I don't know why it's frozen in there. There's a little bit of PV blaster next to you if you want to use that. It shouldn't be difficult. It should be not fused like that. It should be completely
For
free.
it here?
Sure. It should be free to move in and out. The fact that it isn't is...
The fact that the blaster isn't going down?
Yeah, well, just hold it in this orientation and spin it a little bit. And then it should free up.
It's moving a little.
Once it starts moving, then that PV blaster will flow down. I don't know if it has any acidic cleaning effect or not, but the lever that's spring loaded in the up position is what keeps that jet in a certain spot or not. When you pull the choke on the dashboard, there's a choke control, and when you pull that out, it drops the jet to the position it is now.
Drop meaning going this way?
Mm-hmm. And what that does is it opens up the annular space.
Because this is upside down.
And when you open up that annular space a whole bunch, you get a whole lot extra fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what you need when the engine's cold, because the droplets condense on the sidewalls of the manifold, on the inside of the manifold. They don't.
It doesn't feel like it's getting any easier. I mean, I can turn it, but...
No, it sure doesn't. Oh, it's not getting any easier. The jet is seized in there. All we're doing is turning the plastic.
Oh, you're right.
So yeah, you're exactly right. It's not getting any easier. I suppose that's why we can't turn this thing also. Why that thing's giving us a heck of a time. So I would say just wrap on this like that and cause it to move. Cause the jet to be driven down into the might want to hold it in free air so you don't squish your left hand. And just hit it harder until it starts moving. There you go.
That was the cap.
I've never seen one stuck like that before. Of course, when the car sits for 30 years, it's not unreasonable to have some kind of weirdness like that. Here, does this fit in there? Or is it too closed up now? Maybe the jet is just turning in that. Oh, I see. You got it. Yeah. I'm going to just pound it back down again. Just play that back and forth. See what happens.
So, regarding the weekend potential, I'd rather figure that out
Sooner rather
sooner
than
rather
later.
than later.
Let's do that. Let's figure it out.
Which may determine the answer, but I'd
What do you
rather not
mean?
leave it up in the air.
I mean, it may determine the answer.
Like,
You'll-
if we have to make a decision sooner, it might be not good.
It might be not good.
Not good, but just the not going.
Oh, you think you might not go because you have to determine the answer early and you won't be able to decide?
And I won't be able to decide.
And you won't be able to decide?
Or let me take a picture.
Yeah.
I'd like to go. I don't
When you say that, do you mean there are things about going that you'd like, or overall you think it's the best choice to go?
the former.
Oh, okay.
Overall, I don't know because
This is wanting to come out. So.
if we can work here over the weekend, and you don't have work on the 4th, I'm guessing,
I'm free on the 4th.
then we've
Yeah.
got a 3-day weekend to do stuff,
True.
which I see as valuable and not something to just disregard.
Interesting. Yeah, we should look at the jobs on the list and see what we'd actually reasonably do, because we may be at the point where having this stuff undone is the critical path.
Having this stuff undone.
We may be pushing the end date of the project because we don't have the engine back, we don't have the carburetors back, we don't have the front suspension back. We may be in a holding pattern at this point. this Autosport not taking the engine until tomorrow may have put this project off track.
Okay.
We have to be
At
ready for
which-
that possibility.
At which point I would prefer to go, because it may mean I wouldn't be able to go down to Phoenix and hang out with Brandon before school starts.
If we're already having a stoppage, then we should take advantage of that stoppage. Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
it would be the best time for me to go if I wasn't to go in late August.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he has Monday off as well.
Oh, right. He's got Monday off.
And they do celebrate 4th of July, so that's fun.
What's that
Um,
crap on? I wonder if it's just a bunch of mum.
It would also work because if I left on Tuesday, which is the 5th, he'd be at work and I would just do my homework on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd get back to your dad for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Also, I'm optimistic that I'm going to be, that these, an increased work ethic will come about when Joey and Oscar are here, because I experienced an increased work ethic whenever Hunter's here,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whenever more people are in the vicinity.
Right. Okay, well, we should look at the jobs that we want to do.
Okay.
Over the next 6 working days, regardless of where you are. And then we can see if it makes sense.
If I go, what are your plans? Will you be able, if I leave, will it open up time for you to be able to get other things done that you've otherwise been not doing?
I have no shortage of projects available to keep me busy.
Okay.
Some of them are urgent, but I don't, well, anything that's urgent, I'm going to do it regardless of whether you're here. Like, I'm going to be cleaning the wheels on that island wall. So the south wall of the island, it's that structural wall that has those casters welded to it. Those need to be cleaned. Now, they need to be cleaned before next weekend when we put the island back in.
Okay, so the things that we have on the statement of work: remove tank, cut and buff as paint as needed, assess the oil pump, remove the steering rubber gator boots on the front subframe. I don't know what that is. What are the steering rubber gator boots?
Those came in this box from our friends in Oregon. Where's the box from our friends in Oregon? Oh.
This was the only box over there.
Well, if you look at the steering rack, which I put out by the blue container, it has these rubber bellows on the end of it.
The blue container.
The solvent container.
Oh.
The steering
Sure,
rack.
sure.
It has these rubber bellows on it.
Uh-huh.
We got new ones of those from Oregon
Right.
within the last week.
Yep.
So that's what that means.
Those are in that room.
In the the parts room. Good. Yeah. That answers that question.
That's, well, not removed.
Oh, take the old ones off. First, we need to clean the steering rack. That's why I put it by the blue container so you could scrub it.
I see. Okay, and then paint and a prime and paint leaf springs.
Yep.
Which, did you have a plan to take any part of the leaf spring assembly to the shop?
No.
Okay.
No, I figure we can just pound some wedges into that rolled piece at the end and then drive out that bushing. And if we can't do it, then we just bring it over to the machine shop up the street and say, hey, can you press these bushings out for us so we can replace them? And they'll put them on the hydraulic press and do it. course, if it's a bunch of money, I should just buy a hydraulic press.
Yeah, but doesn't Dampers also have your...
He does. It's not a hydraulic press. It's a screw press, which is much less powerful. But I can ask him.
Install rear brake pipes onto rear axle bracketry. And that's this piping here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Assess exhaust condition. Replace rear oil seal. Is that for this guy?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Remove heater fan motor. That's looking at the box.
Yes. Take the motor out of the box. Mm-hmm.
Disassemble the distributor, which I have.
We have the new kit parts for it. Mm-hmm. And he said it's good, so we can put that together.
It's right there.
Yep.
Disassemble and clean carbs. Cut out the dogleg panel.
I don't think we're going to do the dog leg this year.
Okay.
I think that project's going to be abandoned because we're too far behind schedule.
Okay.
That's my guess. You can drive a car with a big hole in it.
That takes up 37 hours.
Not as many as I'd hoped, but more than 0.
Clean repair seats as best as possible. You give 5 hours for that?
I gave you 5 hours for that?
Yeah. What? I'm not expecting a whole lot of work needing to be done to clean those in order to get them ready to put covers on them so we can drive down.
That's true. We could just put covers on them. Don't
Just
need
like
much
wipe them
cleaning at
down
all.
and
Yeah, I might
vacuum some stuff
spray
and-
the mechanism so that they
Yeah.
recline and, well,
Decline.
slide, along the floor on those bracketry.
I mean, once
things.
I started moving them, they were fine,
Yeah,
but definitely just some lubrication.
yeah, probably wire brush them and lubricate them.
So then, the last one is document necessary loss returns on the spreadsheet. So, out of all these things, I really want to finish the leaf springs.
You should definitely finish the leaf springs. Those are good because then we can bolt this thing into the back of the car. We can roll the rear end around. That's pretty cool.
And I would be able to get the fuel tank out.
You can get the fuel tank out now or later. It doesn't appear dependent upon the springs.
Well, I'm thinking about the amount of work it would take. We need to jack up the back of the car
Mm-hmm.
to put this on
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we might as well jack up the back, take the fuel tank off when it's up. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I
we
just
could do
jack it
that.
up now, take the fuel tank out, unjack it,
Yeah.
and then some other time jack it up again.
Yeah.
So there's a net.
Funicello.
Sure.
Benning. Annette who? Right now, the car is sitting on the fuel tank, I think. I think
It
we've
is,
got some
yeah.
tire assemblies there that are sitting on that. So if we can make it sit on this instead of on the fuel tank, it's going to be better.
Right.
Once we get those uprights back, then Dan says he's got the screw press available. We can just go get it. He's in California. Once we get the uprights back from the shop, the car can be on all 4 wheels. We do need to check the front dampers for function.
Front dampers,
Yeah, aka shock absorbers.
which are underneath the.
They need to be scrubbed. They're the ones with the 2 arms on them, not just a single arm. The single arm is for the back of the car. We got new ones. The front, he has the 2 arms on it.
Are the ones underneath the front of the car?
I think so. Maybe. And those need to be scrubbed and then
Can I
checked
just-
for function.
Put those in the tank?
No.
Shady tank?
Mm-mm. No, they need to be scrubbed. And we also don't want to put them in the blast cabinet because we don't want any dust getting into the pivot.
Sure. So those need to be assessed before we put the front suspension on the car?
Right. Because if they're bad, we're either going to need to order rebuilt ones, or we're going to need to order new ones, or we're going to need to find used ones.
Okay. Well, thinking about that, I expect if I were to leave on Saturday.
Saturday. This was Friday.
There are 2 flights of the same cost. One on Friday, one on Saturday. The one on Saturday is earlier, at 6 something. The one
Friday
on
is
Friday
8:35 a.m.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to do Saturday because I would need to find a ride that's not Brandon because he'd be at work by the time I'd be landing on Friday.
11:30 a.m. on Friday?
Yeah.
Well, how far away is that from the mother or does the Nana drive?
Far from the Nana. Mom is at work, probably.
And the Kevin?
I think he'd be at work.
So you kind of just be sitting around doing nothing on Friday? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, my time would be better spent here on Friday.
And you said it's an earlier flight on Saturday. It's at 6 a.m. or something?
So I'd be getting there earlier at 9 something.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, if I left then, that would mean I have the rest of today, Thursday, and all of Friday. I
Thursday and all of Friday. Yeah.
would have some number of hours away tomorrow.
Some number
At
of
the
hours away
auto
tomorrow at the shop. Yeah.
I expect it will be fewer hours than a normal trip with you.
Yeah, because I won't be there.
But I'm confident that I would be able to prime and paint the leaf springs, get the things installed at the ends. We can bend the pipes and then get that whole system assembled.
Bend what pipes?
The U-bolts,
Oh,
because those need to be bent. to fit.
they have a high yield. They're probably just, we're not going to plastically deform them. We'll just push them on.
Oh, okay.
We might be able to plastically deform them. It's not probably necessary.
Yeah, I think I could have tried, but I didn't want to attempt trying it just in case they were just wrong. But at that point, we'd be able to assemble the rest of this.
Totally.
And
And then it can be bolted underneath the car, which would be a major milestone.
then I'd be able to get the fuel tank out.
Yeah.
So, taking into account all of that, prime and paint, reassemble leaf springs, rejoin leaf springs, reinstall the body, reinstall propeller shaft, and bolt the differential flange. I don't think, did I do that?
No, your propeller shaft is in the parts room right now, chilling against the wall.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't need to be, I don't think we need to do anything with it yet.
Okay.
We don't have a tranny in there, so.
Well, that would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 hours for the leaf spring, all this stuff.
It's 13 hours to put the axle back in the car, or to get the leaf springs ready and bolted onto the axle.
Paint, prime and paint leaf springs, reassemble, rejoin the leaf springs and the differential assembly, and then reinstall leaf springs to the body.
Okay.
Is 13.
All right. So at that point, the axle is installed in the car.
Correct. Now, if we
Okay.
go to fuel, removing tank is 2 hours.
Yeah.
Removing the bent lines, clean delivery lines, remove pump, clean outside of tank, deep clean inside of tank, coat inside of tank, paint outside of tank, reinstall tank.
There's
These-
another. How many hours is that?
Well, for the tank things, 1, 2.
If you just highlight over it, you'll see a total in the lower right. Highlight the hours.
Well, the
range.
vent lines, is that including what you're talking
That's
about?
part of the tank, yeah.
Okay. And the pump
Not the pump yet, just the tank.
and the clean delivery lines?
No,
I mean,
not yet. Just
in-tank fuel level sender?
not yet.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 12, 14, 17, 18.5 to have it reinstalled.
One potential thing we could do is order a new fuel tank. It's not unheard of to clean old tanks, but it's probably more common to replace old tanks. Now, this tank came out very nicely. Okay, the fuel that came out of this tank was surprisingly not rusty.
Okay.
That was really cool.
Okay.
That means that the vent system was functioning properly during the time that it was stored for 32 years. And the expansion and contraction of the air around the car didn't really get to the point where it was acting like a bellows and sucking in moist air and sending it to the bottom of the tank and rusting out the tank. Normally that would be the case. You'd come to an old car, especially if the vent system wasn't working, and the bottom of the tank would be totally rusted out. Your car is not that way. The fuel tank actually may be in really good shape. One way to determine that is to knock out that fuel sending unit from the side. It's got a little ring that's with 3 tangs that stick up, and you pound tang 1, then you pound tang 2, then you pound tang 3 over and over and over again until you unscrew that ring. And then when you pull the ring out, then you just lift out the fuel level sender, and you can get a flashlight in there and look. Now, the Black XJS had a rusty tank, and I just shook a bunch of rocks in it, and then water, soap, and stuff, shook more rocks in it, and then I put it back in the car, and that's what I'm running, and it's fine.
Okay.
It seems to me that the tank on the MGB, just based on the way the fuel came out, is in better shape than that.
Okay, that's good.
If we take it out and it's just a huge rusty mess, we take out the fuel level sender thing, and it's a huge rusty mess inside there, it might simply be worth the time to get a brand new tank.
Okay, it looks like Moss is selling them for $219.
They have 2 different tanks. Oh,
Okay.
do the other guys sell one too? They have a high capacity tank, which if you're going to live out in the boonies, a high capacity
the
tank is
16 gallon?
beneficial.
60 gallons, $219. They're classic. Wait,
72 to
let
80.
me look.
Yeah, the touring tank. That's it. 219. What's that? 70 to 76. Oh, go. Yeah. Well, we don't have that. Just go down. No, it won't work because it's a Google ad. The first one there. Oh, what's BP Northwest? They have them? Oh, it's a Google ad. Google ads don't work.
It's close.
Oh, you closed it. You can write. Yeah.
Whoa.
What the heck?
Do you not have it?
On Chrome? I don't know. Oh wait, it was there. It was
What?
there. There. It's weird. Huh. And then
That's an ad. Okay.
okay, so there's a touring. Yeah, what's that? I wonder how many gallons that is larger than the normal one, like 2 gallons or something. Let's see. So let's scroll down. What's it say? Extra capacity.
This goes up to the gas cap?
Yeah.
1970.
That's great that it fits your car and it's bigger than normal. Check BPN and see what they got. That $219 is really cheap. If I could get Jaguar tank for that, I'd definitely be doing that.
Really?
Oh yeah.
There's still a fuel tank kit
Fuel tank kit.
for $254.
What does it have in it? Straps. That's good. Oh, it's also got the sender. Oh, you can. I think you can nix out the sender.
Baffled.
Yeah, baffled is good. Oh, I didn't know that one was available. Should have asked. Okay, so what do you got? Sending unit. Oh, you can nix it out. Can you go to 0?
I wonder if I could just call Curtis and say, hey, can I pick and choose something?
Yeah, totally. It's $20.
Mom suggested that I go back and call them because I received the
Mhm.
title. I called them and I left a good review for Curtis, and I was like, oh, I give Curtis the phone if he wasn't on the line with someone else. And I was like, oh, that's okay. What's your name? And he said, I'm Laylan. Or is it Layton? Layton. I said, oh, Layton, because I had already spoken with him before. And then he seemed to remember me. So that was cool.
If you can remember him, he can remember you. Having worked in the parts business, that's the way it is. It's kind of like
that
you
was
with the
really neat
fries.
because I called and I said, hey, I'm calling about a part that I got replaced.
Mhm.
My name's Isabel Mebo, and he said, oh, the pedal pad? I said, yeah, so either he just knows a lot, or they don't have to send many items back to like
Right.
whatever. So that's fun. Okay. So is the decision about a fuel tank dependent on us taking it out and looking at it?
All we have to do is take out that sender, and then we can stick an eyeball in there. So yeah, it is.
Okay.
But you should call him. You should call him right now. I'm thinking about just opening up the sender and sticking my eyeball in the tank. The 30-year-old fuel we drained out of there wasn't rusty at all. It was just old nasty fuel. The car was stored indoors for 32 years.
Okay.
Do you guys know about those Moss Motors tanks? They're like 16 gallons. How does that compare to the one that you have? Is yours the bigger size too, or is it the regular size, or what is the regular size? Those kind of questions. And say I live in Arizona, so I might be driving long distances.
16. Yeah. Okay, well, I can call him. Regardless, we need to do the work of reassembling things and putting them back in. So, how many hours would that take off? 1, 2. Well, no, we'd have to remove everything anyway. We just would take off the cleaning, which I guess is the majority.
What's the cleaning? 7 hours?
Yeah. But then there's also cutting and painting.
Well, that's what I mean. What's all that stuff? Will be eliminated if we bought a new tank.
12.
12 hours? Okay. That's like $20 an hour. Okay. Does that have a surcharge for shipping? Or does it ship free?
Free.
I like the fact they give you new straps.
What are those straps for?
They hold the fuel tank in. Oh, no, wait. They're buffer pads that go to the top.
What are they made of?
I don't know. Foam or something? Some fibrous material?
Okay, well,
You should call them and ask them about the tank. And then ask them if you just unscrew the, or unless you want to unscrew the thing first. You got to kind of lay under the car to do it. Or sit next to the car and just knock, knock, knock those 3 tanks.
Okay. I think I'd probably want to call him with information.
That sounds more reasonable. Are you going to take your hammer out there and the little pad to sit on? There's a pad.
Is it cold?
It's cold, cold, cold.
A hammer
Mm-hmm.
and a pad.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna come out and help me?
Mm-hmm. Yay, green car. Talk about those knockers. Let's see here. We will talk about this one here and the PB Blaster, which is where? Ah, That's great. Let's see here. So